Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into Ezekiel, the 9th chapter. And pretty much in the 8th chapter, we had read about how the Lord basically took Ezekiel, in a vision to Jerusalem for him to behold the actual wickedness, for his own eyes, the iniquity and the heavy idolatry that was going on over there in the land and in the actual temple. Okay, how the elders over there had basically polluted the temple by building idols in there, worshiping the sun god. You had women weeping for Tammuz. All of that wickedness was going on in there. So the Lord basically took Ezekiel there and showed him that. And in the same vision, or as Ezekiel is looking at what's going on over there, we're continuing, or at least we pick up from there here in chapter 9. And here it says the vision of slaughter. Now, in Ezekiel, the 9th chapter, oftentimes we apply it to today as well. Okay, because as we get to those specific verses, mainly in verse 4 and 5, those can be applied to this time as well. All right, because the scenario is kind of similar. All right, in what the Lord is getting ready to do again. So this is Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 1. He cried also in mine ears with a loud voice, saying, cause them that have charge over the city to draw near, even every man with his destroying weapon in his hand. And behold, 6 men came forth from the way of the higher gate. Now these were angels that Ezekiel was seeing. So as he's seeing all this wickedness going on, he hears now the voice basically of the Lord commanding these 6 angels, which were given authority here to come in and do some damage here. So they came with their weapons in their hands. And behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lieth toward the north, and every man had a slaughter weapon in his hand. And one man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side. And they went in and stood beside the brazen altar. So basically, he saw these men come in with weapons, all right, which were angels, and they came into the temple, all right, at least into the into the court of the temple. And one of them he saw, which was dressed in linen, had an inkhorn, a writer's inkhorn. Now, when you actually look up what an inkhorn is, it's sort of like a little pot of ink that, remember, in the ancient world, to write, there were different forms of writing. Today you have a pencil and a paper. Back then you had a form of writing, which was you would take something like a feather, and then you would dip it in the ink, and then you would use it to write on the parchment or the paper. But let's look up here an inkhorn, or writer's inkhorn. Cool. So this is one example here. This is one example here. This is another example here. So you can see this is a little pot of ink, and this is the feather that they would use to write. You would dip it in there, and then you would use it to write. So he saw one of the angels which had this inkhorn with him. Verse 3, and the glory of the Lord of Israel went up from the cherub whereupon he was to the threshold of the house. So he basically saw that chariot, because that's really when it says the glory of the Lord here, is referring to the chariot, how it moved. It moved from one location to the entrance of the temple. And he called the man clothed with linen, which had the writer's inkhorn by his side. And the Lord Yahweh said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Okay, so remember, he had that inkhorn, right? And this is still part of the vision that Ezekiel is seeing. So this angel, the Lord commands him, go throughout and look because the land is full of abominations and wickedness. However, look through to find out which individuals are actually against this. Which individuals are vexed, are sighing and crying for all this wickedness that is going on in the land. Okay, and that mark that this angel was to set upon their foreheads was a mark of exemption. All right, it was to exempt them from the judgment that was coming, because when you read in here, the word mark here, the word here is thawa. It says here, desire, mark as sign of exemption from judgment. Okay, so it wasn't a physical mark per se. And remember that at this time there was heavy wickedness going on in the land, but there was still you still had individuals in the land that were against this. Okay, guess what? At this time, Jeremiah was also still in Babylon. Okay, because at this point Jerusalem hadn't been destroyed yet, and we know that Jeremiah was a contemporary with Daniel and Ezekiel and all of them, except Jeremiah was actually in Jerusalem prophesying. And at this point, Ezekiel was part of those captives that was taken prior to Jerusalem being destroyed. So there were still individuals in there that would be exempted. Okay, i.e., ultimately when the judgment was to come, I'm breaking this part down in context of what's happening at that time. Okay, and then I'll relate it to this time as well. But ultimately, there were individuals there that got destroyed when the judgment came, when the Babylonians came, and so on and so forth. But then there were also some that got spared, right? And the Lord told Ezekiel that would happen, right? When you go to Ezekiel, when we go back a couple of chapters, Ezekiel chapter, let's see. I think it was actually chapter 6 or chapter 5. Let's go down a bit. Let's see. Yeah, here it is, chapter 6, verse 7. It says, "And all the slain shall fall in the midst of you, and ye shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh. Yet will I leave a remnant, that ye may have some that shall escape the sword among the nations, when ye shall be scattered through the countries." See, so there were still going to be some that would be exempted from the judgment to come. And just like this happened then, it is also applied now as well, because in this time, guess what? You may not have the same exact scenario where we're all back in Jerusalem and this wickedness is going on there, but you still have Israel that are in their abominations. Okay, and just like when the Lord brought judgment back then, He exempted a certain people. That also applies to the elect in this time, who the Lord is going to exempt from the judgment to come. So you'll see us go into, oftentimes we'll bring out Ezekiel chapter 9 verse 4 and verse 5 and apply it to today, because it is applicable to today as well, because the Lord is bringing a great judgment in this time as well. But the elect, okay, the chosen of the Lord, they're not gonna be destroyed in that. They're not gonna be a part of that judgment. So they're gonna be exempted in that judgment, and we hope to be a part of that number. Okay, but continuing on, so the angel is told, this is his commandment to go and do this. Verse 5, "And to the others," so the rest of them, right? Remember that there were 6 men that came with weapons in their hands. So to the rest, the Lord said, right, in mine hearing, meaning while Ezekiel could hear him, He said, "Go ye after him through the city, and smite, and let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity." So the first one was to go with the inkhorn, and he's to mark those that would be exempt. You're supposed to go after and go and kill those that are not exempted. Okay, and remember, like I said, this is all still a part of the vision that Ezekiel is seeing. Verse 6, "Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark." That's why He said, go after him. the one that went to set the mark upon them. And now everybody that you see that doesn't have a mark, whether they're old or young or a child or whatever, take them out. But anybody that has that mark of exemption, they're good. And begin at my sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house. Now remember, in the previous chapter, it mentioned that you had, I think, 23, 24, 25 of the ancients that were in the temple, and they basically had like the images of their idols on the walls and everything, and they were worshiping. So the Lord sent them angels after them, said, go start slaying and begin at them. Okay. And he said unto them, defile the house, meaning the temple, and fill the courts with the slain. Go and defile, because there would be dead bodies, and the dead bodies are unclean, and they would defile the temple. But the Lord at this point is like, at this point, I'm in the mindset of judgment. So don't even hold back. And fill the court with the slain. Go ye forth. And they went forth and slew in the city. And it came to pass, while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried, and said, Ah, Lord God, Yahweh, wilt thou destroy all the residue of Israel in thy pouring out of thy fury upon Jerusalem? Now, it's not, abundantly clear whether this was because this was a vision that Ezekiel was seeing, which it tells you that in chapter 8. So it's not abundantly clear whether this, like the Lord actually physically sent these angels to go and do this physical killing, in the land, or if this vision that Ezekiel saw was to represent what the Lord was going to do when he sent the Babylonian armies to Jerusalem to go and cast it down. And then they would slay, certain people. They would still save certain people for captivity and let certain other people go. Okay. Because, one thing that comes to mind is this would have likely been mentioned in the book of Jeremiah, right? Jeremiah was there at the time. So he would have seen it. He would have made mention that, damn, there was a period of time when the Lord sent angels and they just came and started slaying, people out here in the streets. Okay. But nevertheless, the point of the chapter still stands, which is that the Lord was showing Ezekiel the vision of the judgment he used to bring. As he said, when Ezekiel started pleading, right? As Ezekiel said, and it came to pass while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried. And the reason I say that is because one example is when you read in the book of Samuel about King David, right? When the Lord put the evil spirit upon King David and he numbered the people, which upset the Lord came to him by, I think it was either the prophet Nathan or Gad, that told him, the Lord is going to give you 3 forms of judgment, you pick. And David basically picked the one that would come by the pestilence, I believe 3 days upon the people. Now, when you actually read it, let me see if I can actually go and find it. But when you read it, it's, let's see. God sends pestilence during King David's rule. Okay, they have one here in First Chronicles. Do they have the other account? All right, let's just go there. First Chronicles 21:1. Let's see, First Chronicles 21:1. There we go. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. Here's the account. 2 Samuel chapter 24. Now, I just want to get straight down to the point, which I'm trying to make here. Yeah, so it was Gad, right? So Gad came to David and told him and said unto him, shall 7 years of famine come upon thee in thy land? Or wilt thou flee 3 months before thine enemies while they pursue thee? Or that there be 3 days pestilence in thy land? Now advise and see what answer I shall return to him that sent me. So King David basically chose the pestilence, and let's see what happened here. Yeah, So you see here in verse 15, it says, so the Lord sent a pestilence upon Israel from the morning even to the time appointed. And there died of the people from Dan even to Beersheba 70,000 men. And when the angel stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord repented him of the evil and said to the angel that destroyed the people, it is enough, stay now thine hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing place of Araunah the Jebusite. So basically, as it says, the angel, right, let's read verse 17. And David spake unto the Lord when he saw the angel that smote the people. So it came in the form of a pestilence, but it was really the angel of the Lord that was doing this killing. Okay, which is, one other reason that I was saying that it's not abundantly clear in this chapter if the angels physically, in this vision that Ezekiel is seeing in chapter 9, if they physically went in and were slaying people, okay, or if the angel is physically going, obviously he wasn't, the one with the inkhorn wasn't physically putting black ink upon the foreheads of people in there, which I wonder if that's where they get that whole idea in Catholicism of like mass or whatnot, where they get that black thing on their head. I don't know. Maybe I gotta look into it. But yeah, so that's still the point in Ezekiel chapter 9. The point is the Lord is showing Ezekiel, this is the judgment that I'm going to bring because of the wickedness I just showed you. Okay, so anyway, as Ezekiel pleads, right, he says here, verse 8, and it came to pass while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried and said, Ah, Lord God, Yahweh, wilt thou destroy all the residue of Israel in thy pouring out of thy fury upon Jerusalem? So you're going to take out everybody? Then said he unto me, the iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceeding great, and the land is full of blood, and the city full of perverseness. For they say, the Lord Yahweh hath forsaken the earth, and the Lord seeth not. And as for me also, mine eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense their way upon their head. Because keep in mind that whatever, the Lord is just, right? Whatever judgment he was going to bring, it was going to be according to the level of wickedness that was being committed. So when the Lord, King David said, what? Punish me not in thy hot displeasure. And also, I believe the Lord said that he didn't, what is it? It says, I will punish thee in measure, like roughly paraphrasing. So there are times when the Lord shows mercy by bringing judgment, but not in the fullness, meaning the judgment the Lord brings is not actually equivalent to the level of wickedness that you've committed. And that's a show of mercy. Here's an example. You committed, King David, for example, right? Committed adultery and murder, but was not put to death. He faced a judgment because of the hell that he caught in his life, right? The deeds that Absalom, his own son, committed, the wars that he had to endure in his old age. He went through that, which was a form of judgment, but it wasn't in accordance to the sins that he committed, because the Lord showed him mercy. So the Lord brought judgment, but it wasn't according, the Lord didn't do it accordingly to the sin that King David committed. But here the Lord is saying, I'm not going to have pity. I'm not going to show that mercy. I'm going to judge you as you've done the wickedness. The level of wickedness you've committed, I'm going to bring the equivalent recompense. And that's why it's going to be so bad. That's why there's going to be so many dead. And the Lord said here, but I will recompense their way upon their head. And behold, the man clothed with linen, which had the inkhorn by his side, reported the matter, saying, I have done as thou hast commanded me. So he went through and he had set that mark. Basically, it was an indicator, a spiritual mark, an indicator to say this person is exempt, this person is exempt, leave that person is good. Because these are the people that were not down with this wickedness that was going on. And like I said, same thing today. You have Israelites that are heavy into this wickedness, some that know they're Israelites, some that don't. Okay, and then you have the elect that are not with it. And in fact, that speak against it, that are vexed by it, that sigh and cry in the spirit, okay, for the abominations that are being committed. So guess what? When the Lord brings judgment again in this time, he's going to exempt those elect. And for the rest, he's going to judge accordingly. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.